may not be able to stay for the whole time here, so that I have a 72-second version of my presentation, which we'll get to, which has everything in it you have to know about surrealism. There we go.
This is pretty surreal right here.
Thank you.
I think this is the 72-second version.
This is the 72-second version.
This is cool. Yeah.
'71, '72.
Great.
So really, that's all I have to say for the next hour. It's really about play, it's about exploration, it's about feeling yourself in the moment. So surrealism is not so much an art movement as it is an expression of kind of child's play. It's remembering to play. And it's the name surrealism obviously is surreality, above reality. And so much of our reality is business, family, social oriented, that we have to remember other things. And these teachers, these little teachers that we luckily run into, there's one actually in the back room there too, who's toddling around in a blue onesie, are really important to remind us about what one of the purposes of life is, and that is to keep your curiosity alive, keep your kind of sense of wonder, your sense of awe. And basically what we want to do, and what surrealists tried to do, was how has meaning migrated in our life? Where do I find meaning now? So going back to surrealism itself, most of it was a movement that sort of developed out of some artist veterans of World War I who had been through just a horrific experience, and they sort of came out of it and said, what just happened? And they said it was nationalism, it was rationalism, there has to be a different way, a better way. So luckily they got together, and that kind of the energy in Paris at the time and other parts of Europe created this kind of dialogue between mostly men. There are a few women involved. So much of art is so highly gendered and they became a movement centered around André Breton, who was both a writer and a visual artist. His personality, a very strong personality, was kind of the center of that. And when so it lasted till about 1962. But they were all mostly men born in the late 1880s, early 1900s, early 1890s. So it's that age set of, for instance, my grandparents. And so I mention all this because it's related to the history of the moment, that war, that World War I, that cultural time of people born in the late 19th century. Excuse me. So all of this, it's just a blossom of the search for meaning that's happened throughout all of human history. Plato's cave is a form of surrealism. Gnosticism is a form of surrealism. Christianity is a form of surrealism. That is, if you look at it as the way that you're searching for meaning. Now, the surrealists, let's move along and see where we are.
Where is this, by the way?
Pardon me?
Where was that? Where was that filmed?
The little girl?
Yeah, where was it?
That was out on the Olympic Peninsula in Washington. This is another image that a friend of mine, to me this is, since you're staying beyond the 72 seconds, I'll show you the next image. And this is David Horton, who's a photographer, a friend of mine. And this is a picture he did in the 1970s. And it's, now we're back to adults. The name of it is Walking in Three Worlds. So that's kind of the challenge many of us feel, certainly the surrealists felt, that you're stepping off, you're in motion, going somewhere, doing something, walking into a place that's perhaps unknown. And that's what that little girl was doing, you know, with the puddles on that tidal place. So those of you who can read at this distance, I can't. Want me to read it to you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Surrealism is a way of using words, images, sounds, movements, or objects to encounter and express a different reality, a surreality. It was the name adopted by a European art movement at the early part of the 20th century and included for a time Kurt Seligman. It honored the value of chance, accident, surprise, unexpected juxtaposition, and coincidence as artistic expression. So these are generally devalued features in a capitalist economy. You basically want to control those things. You don't want to experience them. You want to minimize them. So the surrealists, in their contrariness, embraced things that were of dubious value in mainstream society. They were experiments with smoke, heat, water, collage, rubbing, dipping, blowing, pouring, scraping, shooting liquids on canvas. It began a series of literary and poetic experiments with words and then grew into a visual movement, all with the purpose of enlivening the sense and imagination of the listener or the viewer. Marcel Duchamp, 1887 through 1968, was associated with this movement, basically said, do as I do, don't do as I do as you do. And that's what we're going to get to a little bit of that today, because I believe him. I was meant to get people thinking and acting more on their own behalf. So I was sensitive to just the passive quality of you all being here, so be prepared to do something. It explored techniques to alter, change, violate everyday perception and understanding. Violation is a very interesting thing because part of surrealism was exploring the exotic, the erotic, and there were always crossing lines between variation, which is what I'll talk about the art in this room at some point. It's a variation, but when does it cross over into being a violation? And if it is a violation, can you handle it? Can you tolerate it? So when do you sort of say no more of that? Or when is it pleasantly provocative to experience a violation of something? Surrealism appeared between the wars of the 20th century. It was both a desperate and hopeful response. Practitioners considered themselves revolutionaries. Andre Breton was the organizing force. Surrealism is the magical surprise of finding a line in the closet when you were sure of just finding shirts. And that's a quote from Frida Kahlo. Any comments or questions at this point? Okay. So you mentioned Marcel Duchamp. I'm only going to show you a picture of a few of the surrealists, but Duchamp is definitely one of them. And he was probably, this was in 1917, he was asked to participate in an art show, and he created this fountain in the art show. And it was revolutionary at the time. Well, that's not a fountain. So that's kind of an iconic picture, and he did the same thing really the rest of his life. Just a pleasant variation I mean, I don't think you can be offended by a urinal, but you have to sort of decode what it is, and you say, why would someone do that? And it's just that slight shift of the frame of reference, and that's what a lot of art does. It shifts the frame of reference, and it's basically in your service that you're with it, and you say, oh, I see that differently now. And you have that feeling inside that something shifted a little bit. And you go, oh, my sinuses have cleared. What a wonderful thing. I'll have to come to these art shows more often. And that's really what art does. Art is not so much a self-expression on the part of the artist as it is an attempt to help you in some sort of self-alteration. And that's why, some of these pieces talk to you more than others. Particularly like what looked like the student work in the back. There's an energy there. You're responding. Yeah.
That piece is talking to me. It says R. Mutt, 1917.
Right. He signed it. He didn't even sign his name on it.
He just adopted that name like a pen.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Pseudonym.
Yeah.
R. Mutt. Wow, interesting.
So these are called. So what the Surrealists did was they often appropriated common objects, and they were called ready-mades. So what would you do with a tire? What would you do with a urinal? So it's that idea that you're not having to do something, you're not having to have exotic materials or something too different or peculiar, but you can start with something very common. So what I have for you today are these things that I found somewhere. I have no idea what they are. Maybe someone will remember what they are. Oh, really? I have no idea. So here, if you would open that up and pass those around. Let's say these are ready-mades.
Am I passing these around?
Yeah, you're taking one.
I can't take one.
They're knotted up.
They're all knotted up.
You'll have to undo the knot.
Do you have a pair of scissors?
No. Oh, good.
Well, you know
Here we
what
are.
I
We're already in the workshop.
This is the
great.
Gordian knot.
Oh, here.
Maybe you can separate
It's
it.
difficult.
I always looked at some of the surrealism as a shock, and then you should start a conversation.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So it depends on the level of the shock. Is it a pleasant surprise, or is it like, oh my God, I can't take this.
But it's
I
still,
gotta
you have to
go.
start a conversation.
That's right. Yeah. But some people are not. It's so powerful that they're not interested in the conversation. In fact, you're absolutely right.
Isn't there something strange about trying to find an alternative to a horrible reality when he's smoking?
In those days, it didn't matter.
Oh, it was part of the world. Are you getting that, or should we
Yeah,
get these women?
It's coming.
I know.
Okay, let's get to do it, please.
All right, so these, what's being passed around are our ready-mades. What do you think? What can we do with these? Oh dear. Good. Yeah, okay. Oh.
Frame and hang it on your Christmas tree.
You've done your own service here. You take this and I'll take this.
What do I do with it now?
I have no idea. This is the problem we have to solve.
Daniel, isn't this a pull for a lampshade, for a window shade?
Is it? I have no idea. I think it's some sort of piece of jewelry, isn't it? I have no idea what it is.
That's a curtain.
It is. Huh. Well, what would our mutt put on there? There are no more shades like that, right? You need some? Anyone need any? Oh! Okay. All right. So in our show today, all right, we have, okay, we have one on someone's head back there as a crown.
It's a yo-yo that doesn't work.
Okay.
He's done. He's done for the day. Okay.
But these, at surrealist gatherings, this would be a kind of activity. It's playful. It's just, no notes have to be taken. Oh, I love, hadn't even thought of that. Actually, this probably gets to the next interesting part of this. Well, thank you all for this. Rennie Magritte was also part of that group. There were maybe 20 people in and out of the group. And the idea of just saying that something that it clearly is not. This is not a pipe. So a lot of it is contrariness. So what's the value of being contrary? And largely what it was spiritually, it was both a spiritual movement, believe it or not, and there's a wonderful book that one of my woman that was involved with me over at the Citizens Foundation, where Sullivan's farm ended up, wrote called Surrealism and the Sacred. And it was really, I almost think those are the two words that would never be put together. But it was an amazing kind of exploration of the spirituality beneath a lot of different art movements. But what it is your willingness, again, back to that 72-second version, to explore kind of dangerous areas. How much can you engage with danger in a certain way? What's back there? Are there snakes? Are there lions? Are there what's in that tree if I go in there? So it's taking a deep breath and sort of exploring something. And it's usually on the edges, the borders, the different textures. And this happens on almost a pre-conscious or a subconscious level, that how you feel safe or not safe. The point of engaging in that conversation with an artist. Do you feel safe to continue here or not? And it's the same thing here. Is there an undertow there that's going to drag me out? Is it safe to stand there? So your mind, your unconscious mind. So surrealists basically mind the unconscious. They look for doorways and portals into the unconscious. And we can do that. We do that all the time as we visit places, as we do things. So we engage with things. Our gardens are probably the things that draw us most now, things we notice about what's happened over the winter, what we plan. So engaging with nature, because there is both a kind of a romantic and dangerous quality to nature. It's both feral and kind and amoral at the same time. So our gardens, those deer that come every night, or the raccoons, or the so it's looking, and we all do this. That's the constant kind of refrain I'm going to have for this hour. You can leave now if you like, but you all do this. You're all. I'm sitting in a group of surrealists right now because we have. It's the way we create our presence in the world. Okay, here's another little. This is less than 72 seconds. So it's responding to the moment. It's responding to the unexpected. And one of the tattoos for the surrealists is assist the unexpected. And it doesn't have to be dangerous. It doesn't have to be threatening, but it's just that kind of thrill you have when something works, when a coincidence works, when an accident works, when I haven't seen you in a long time. I was just thinking about you the other day. When you realize that there is a life beyond your kind of daily to-do list life. And what this requires is a slightly altered sense of time. We have a very strong sense in this part of our life our culture, time is quite linear. Time is chronological, chronos, the powerful father, linear. There's a past, there's a present, there's a future. Things are lined up, things are orderly, there's a bunch of rules. There is another sense of time which has always been there, and it's much less available consciously, and it's called kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S. And it's time that's spiral, that all time is the same time. And many artists feel this way, that they're just this year's bloom of expression of something that's very old, very ancient. Religion is that. It's just refreshing old experiences. You know, religion doesn't progress into, I mean, there's no end to it. It's a cyclical activity. And that's really what kairos is. And it's a very difficult concept in our particular culture, because we're so oriented towards the linear sense of time. Okay, so we'll get to Surrealism as really a form of alchemy. So it was about a 40-year expression of these men, essentially, these World War I veterans, discovering ancient principles that go back before the Christian era. I mean, they go back to Plato, they go back to the Gnostics. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And it's basically alchemical principles. And they embrace that very heavily. So all those processes I talked about, you know, blowing this and scraping that, those are right out of an alchemical laboratory. And the alchemists were in a laboratory, a place to do labor, and what's the other word there? Oratory, which is a place to pray. So there's constantly that fusion of work and prayer together, so that they're working on something. It isn't just turning lead into gold. That's kind of a cartoon version of that. It's searching for something. And you do that on a technical level, you do it on an imaginal level, and you do it on a spiritual level. And here's my studio with some of my searching. So I spent 30 years making this kind of stuff, chairs out of tree branches. So again, transforming one thing into another. All right, so in my big boy upper world activity, it was making rustic furniture, stairways, chairs, beds for people, for architects. And then in the last 10 years, I've been just creating some of these figures that are on the right there. And again, these are kind of, I'm calling them nature maids. You know, after the surrealists using ready-mades, that your eye just picks that stick, that stone, and you do a little something to it. You're working with something rather than on it. So you're modulating control of your environment. You have to do that again as gardeners, right? You cannot control that garden perhaps as much as you want. So just a little bit of sanding on that stone and a little bit of oil. What is it? I don't know, but it calls to you. That one stick that looks like it's stepping off, going somewhere. So the illusion of motion. And these are right from my yard. And this is my closest to a ready-made. So all of this, and again, I refer to your own need for creating patterns, that what we do is create patterns with material. The way we organize our shelves, our kitchens, our workshops, our dresser tops, it's all patterning, whether the patterns are lines or piles, that we are constantly order and disorder making creatures. So the way trees get planted, this is the Warwick Cemetery, or the way little bits of land art get done. We're constantly collecting, organizing, things can be very casual, very easy. It doesn't have to be filled with expensive tools or glues or such things. All right, I'm going to get on to Seligman. So as Bill was saying, he was one of the first artists to leave Nazi Europe in 1939. He was Jewish, and it was you could hear the thunder begin. Some of the other surrealists they weren't quite as alarmed at that point. They were still trying to figure out what was what. But he and his wife left supposedly for a show in New York City, and he never went back. This particular picture of him as a young man is really what surrealism is about. It's finding that third eye, way to look at things. That we have our upper world, three-dimensional reality, and then we have our five-dimensional reality, where we're always in touch with some sort of intuition. I'm very intuitive, or I'm not very intuitive, or things always, there's another part of you that you're really aware of, and that's the surrealists were always kind of looking for ways to engage, empower that other eye, that third eye that we have. This is a picture of his studio over in Sugarloaf before a tornado hit it. Who wrote that? Was that you, Bill, that wrote that wonderful thing about a week of surrealism, the earthquake? And,
Yes.
Oh, that was lovely. The earthquake, the eclipse. And his studio was knocked down by a tornado that hit Orange County in 1959 and then was rebuilt. So that property that I'm talking about that he bought with his wife in 1940 is the old Woods Farm. It's just a regular old Orange County farm, but it's there. It's 50 acres, and after today, I will have given you some sort of textural thought about who he was, and just you can feel some of the energy over there. So there's a little farmhouse, there's a rebuilt studio, and there's pleasant walkways. We've put in some gardens. I worked over there about 10 years as head of a committee with Michelle. Michelle Figlamini, we spent time at the Orange County Citizens Foundation, who now owns it. They were donated this property after Seligman's wife died in 1992. Let me show you some of his work. And as Bill was saying, he scooped into that Swiss tradition of his, kind of the festivals and all those dancing characters, and they appeared throughout his entire career, all kind of 40 years of his painting. And they got a little more. This is an early one, and then the one on the right is a later one. But you'll see, it's that energy swirling all the time. And what's that about? He also was an academic. He was Swiss, so he was not a veteran of the war. Switzerland was neutral in World War I, so he did not have. He also is younger than probably 10 or 12 years younger than most of the other surrealists, so he was too young to have fought in World War I, so he didn't have that experience. So that some of it was more academic, and so he was protected. I mean, if you have friends or if you are veterans, it's a pretty raw experience, and you don't recover from it. So he never had that experience, and he was able to kind of craft a career for himself in a slightly different way. And one thing he did, he was kind of the expert in the occult and magic. And this book that he did in 1949 was just reprinted again last year. And what's really interesting about this book is that it's a really good encyclopedic exploration of all the different ways that you can get into the unconscious. Tarot, astrology, Enneagram. So if you're interested in exploring kind of those parts of yourself, he writes really well. It's a very inviting and very, very simple book, and it's pretty easily available right now. I think I probably brought a copy with me today if you want to look at it. How am I doing on time? Am I talking too much?
Fine.
Good. You didn't answer the talking too much question. To the magus, there exists no accidental happening. The magus discovers marvelous active forces where others only see familiar things. So I thank you all for being your little magus today with these shade poles. And they are shade poles. I'll confess to that. They're old shade poles. So the artist is the magus. The magus is the magician. And we all have inner magicians, and the surrealists put themselves forward as kind of major cultural magicians, and that's really what artists do, but they just represent us in the other world. So I'm going to show you now some kind of regular people and what they do. I've been a teacher most of my life, besides being an artist, and I've taught various forms of making. And what I've learned is that when you teach someone to use tools, they essentially make who they are or make who they want to be. So this guy thinks he's just releasing the wood spirit in the wood, and he's really memorializing himself. When I teach chair making, I teach people how to make these rustic chairs. And I say, oh, can I take a picture of you in your chair? They'll stand there with the chair, and the chair will look just like them. They'll reproduce the same body language. You know, oh, I love that shape of that. You know, all three of these women, right? It's the same. I mean, and then this one. All right, so she finished her chair. Doesn't she look like she could be sitting in this audience? Hello, are you there, ma'am? And oh, here. And she finished the chair. That is the skull of her favorite dead cat. So we finished the chair, and you know, we put up with her for the whole week. This is lovely, you've done a nice chair. And she reached into her bag and picked out this skull and put it in the top, and we all went, oh. You know, talk about being in the presence of a magus, right? I mean, it's just, she knew all week just what she wanted to do. This was a memorial to her favorite cat. So it's just, it's a humbling experience when you think you're teaching someone how to do something, and that they just, it's being with the 2-year-old again, or the 3-year-old, or the 4-year-old. And this woman doesn't have to be an older person. This woman, I was told, this is the first time she's been out. Her husband died a couple of months ago, and this is the first time she's even been out in public. Y'all heard me?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and there was a sadness and a melancholy to her, right? A young widow. And what she chose to make, other people were making chairs, she made a trellis. And she kind of wove these things back together, some structure that she made for herself, you know, as she's heading back into the world. So that if you look at kind of the poetic quality of the objects, not only the objects we make, but the objects we buy, the objects we put on our dressers or our mantles, you'll see how they're all participating in kind of an expressive, basically spiritual, how am I going to make it through the next week or next month activity. And it is just, and it never gets done. It's a cyclical activity that happens over and over and over again. And it just sinks into the unconscious. You don't even know you're doing it. The way you dress, the clothes you choose to wear. I mean, there's so many, we're such expressive animals that there's nothing really casual about what we do. It's not serious, it's playful. You know, it doesn't have to be analyzed. And then finally, I was teaching a little workshop, a parent and child workshop, and I invited parents to go back to my woods and collect sticks. And what we're going to do is we're going to collect sticks, and then we're going to wrap them with yarn. And this little boy went right to the compost pile and came out with old banana peels. So it was a real challenge for me to say, all right, listen, he's, oh, poor child, he must be on some sort of spectrum, you know. And instead, it was just, so he found a lot of interesting stuff in the compost pile. And it's been a lesson that's been around forever. And this was Seligman's, probably his last painting. And it's called, what's it called? Rubisol. And it's the name of a Swiss mountain spirit that if you encounter it as a traveler, it probably eats you. So this was his last painting. And I love it when you look it up, it said whereabouts unknown. Tell you something else about Seligman. So he had both the place in Sugarloaf, which is a very bucolic, big farm, and I think he rented out parts of it to local farmers. He didn't farm, and he lived in New York City in the Beaux-Arts building at 41st Street and taught at Brooklyn College and the New School until 1960. So there was that kind of classic country city kind of thing, and lots of his friends who were in the city would come up for weekends with him. He was a very skilled technician, and he had a etching press, a very large thing, probably as big as this, and it's still there. You can still see it over there. And there's a whole building that. So a lot of artists, Alexander Calder, for instance, came up and pulled an edition of his prints with Seligman. So Seligman was both kind of not only the writer of kind of occult and magic, but he was also a technician that assisted other artists, and he did his own. He did a lot of etchings on his own. But there would be lots of people visiting on weekends. It was just kind of what we experience in Orange County now with that Friday afternoon traffic and Sunday afternoon traffic, and then they'd go back to New York City. That happened until he had a heart attack in '56 or so, and then just as he aged, life just began to condense a little bit, so that he gave up his teaching jobs. He and his wife moved to Sugarloaf and lived the rest of his time there, and he stopped teaching. And after '59, the art world was changing. So it wasn't quite as celebratory for the kind of work that he was doing or the Surrealists were doing. Abstract Expressionism was taking over. There was just a younger, more energized. So he was 60 at that point, 59. And a certain kind of depression set in. It's like, I used to be someone that counted. Now, and now he's just sort of a retired professor with a heart problem. And I say all that because he died in January of 1962 from let me be careful the way I put this, an accidentally inflicted gunshot wound as he was going out to kill squirrels at his bird feeder. Wink, wink. So he said. So his biographer, and there's a wonderful biography on him by a woman named Martika Samhain, and was very careful when she was talking about this, and then her next sentence was, and other Surrealists also engaged in, there's another discussion about suicide with Surrealists. So we don't know, so it's an issue whether or not it was suicide or not. But you can just sort of see the shade pulling on his life, no pun intended. and just kind of a depression setting in. So he died in 1962, in January 62, and Arlette lived another 30 years. So she became, and does any of you know, did you know Arlette? Michelle, did you know her? Yeah, what was your experience with her?
She was a very humble woman,
Mhm.
loved her gardens. She, although obviously married to Kurt, I don't think art was her primary focus. She didn't even realize what she had. Many of the artists that were friends of hers presented some of their work to them. And so after she had passed and that it was sold, there was quite an endowment left to help to maintain the property. But she was, if you were in her home, you wouldn't think she had a dime, and she didn't care. She was just, like I said, she just loved nature, and she just was a very, I don't want to say isolated, she was very cautious about who she socialized with or who she spoke to. She didn't trust a lot of people. I don't know why that was. You know, she had a small circle of people that she kept around her to help her through the years.
30 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. When was this? When did you?
Well, I happened to work for the town, so in that capacity, I knew some people that were in her small circle.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, she loved her gardens. That was the thing. And just since I'm talking, I just want to. So we were on the board together for the Citizens Foundation, now Vision Hudson Valley, as was Elaine. And so I would invite people because, as Dan said, there's a lot of very interesting things still there. A lot of Kurt's art is still there. And so if you have the occasion, if you haven't already, you know, go there. You can walk around. You can also make an appointment to see things that might not be readily available. So, you know, we have a website. You can just contact Jackie Perez or Caitlin Lancelotti. They're the two staffers there. And actually, Jackie lives on site, and she can, you know, take you through. And I know the Seligman Committee is reassembling for Michael Benford.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Oh.
Kara Cavallo, who's an attorney in Walden,
Huh.
and she's leading that, and she's on the board now.
Oh,
And
great.
so I knew you'd be happy, and this is great, by the way, and I would hope that maybe we can invite you to come there and do the same thing.
Oh, I'd love to. Yeah.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. So these were all shows that we, you know, we had exhibits of his work over at the.
And there was, you know, there was a recent show, probably a little over a year now, and I can't remember the fellow's name.
Elliot, the Caesar.
Right, and who put together a wonderful presentation, and he made these, I don't know what you call them, displays, I guess, of some of Kurt's actual things that he touched, you know,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
were from the site. So that's still there.
Yeah. Yep. So it's very accessible. You can just drive. It's on White Oak Road in Sugarloaf. It's a road you wouldn't even know was there. And I can tell you, someone has a garden sign out. There's a garden shop down the way, but you can just drive through the property. You don't have to make an appointment quite yet, but it's just to take a look at it and see what you feel over there. One story I heard about Arlette, and she was a petite woman. He was quite tall, and she was very petite. That her chosen way of weeding her garden was to lie flat on the ground in the garden and weed. And she would often, people would get very alarmed that she had somehow died. So the ambulance was there more than.
Speaking of that, so the Kurt and Arlette are actually buried in what was the
Oh, yeah.
Woods Cemetery right on site
Yeah.
there. So it's a very kind of a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
So if you go, you're welcome to go in and take a look. There's also some other artworks that are on site as well.
Yeah, we put lots of artworks from other Orange County artists on the property. There's 3 huge spirals, from a work artist, a metal worker named Julius Medwin. And then there's a path.
Right, and that was recently, well, I don't know, because we had some storms and a lot of wind, so there's been some issues, and they were trying to clean some of it up, but Boy Scout did an eco project and reconfigured the path so you could actually get down there.
Oh.
And it was just dedicated to Jerome Spector, so.
Oh, yeah.
It was Pauline's blessing, so, yeah, there's a lot to see and walk around, and like I said, the only thing is, I said appointment because if you want to get inside, you see the press.
Inside the house, or yeah.
The house or the press.
Or,
like,
yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
mentioned, so,
But still, you can get a good hit off it just by walking around the property.
yeah, it's a very spiritual kind of experience. And I understand that the town and Sugarloaf, they're talking about creating a path to actually walk up Kings Highway safely. I don't know if that's going to incorporate our site, but I think it's intended to at some point. It's going to be a while.
Yeah. And Sugarloaf Mountain just
Right.
got
And we're
bought,
working-
and this connects to it, so
Right, we're
it just,
working with them.
it's worth just at least a drive-by, if not sort of take a look at it. And the point about Arlette was really interesting, that I think she tolerated Kurt's art. I'm probably,
Yeah,
it's not quite the right way to put it. But her gardening, her love of nature was much more important. So when she died, there was no mention of Kurt Sullivan, the art. This is an art center. This was given to the citizens of Orange County for, what was the phrasing? As an example of an early American homestead. So it was very difficult for those of us who are interested in the art quality of it to make a case for this being an art center, because she basically said, oh no, this is just an early American homestead.
Was it gorgeous?
Yeah.
Did she come from Germany, or did they meet in the United States?
They met in Germany. She was the granddaughter of a very wealthy art family, the Wildenstein family in Germany. Yeah.
The way you described Seligman's death and the way the community seemed to try to take away the pejorative appearance of suicide. Could you not look at his suicide as the ultimate expression of surrealism?
Oh, you're right on. I think it was a very conscious, it wasn't out of depression. I think it was probably a very conscious choice. I agree.
But everyone tried to not express it that way.
That's right. I don't think that's not a mainstream way to look at it. Yeah, I think you're right.
Dan, you didn't mention it, I don't know if you know, but I understand that he and Andre Breton had quite a misunderstanding.
Oh,
sometime,
yeah.
and you didn't mention it, and I just.
Yeah, I will. So Breton, again, was this very dynamic paternal character who was 12 years older than Seligman. Invited him, saw his work in Paris, and invited him to join, let's see, what year was it, to join this circle. So he was a young member of, 1937. So Sullivan would have been 37 at that point. He was invited because of the quality of his work and that kind of highly energized imagery. Would you like to join our group? And he did. And so he was a member, and he would show with them. And then when they were all in New York in 1943, there was a gathering, and they were discussing the tarot, and they were discussing, I think, the interpretations of the hanged man, the upside down image. And Breton, and someone said, I don't think that, I'm in the middle of a book, I really think it's, you're out. And he banished him from the Surrealist group at that point. So that may have, thanks for bringing it up, that may have had, it's just like, so he was back on his own at that point. And I don't know how strong the Surrealist group at that point was, but they were all friends, so I know people were still visiting up at the property, lots of different people, right through when he died. But it's just that kind of artistic mentality that sort of cuts you off, or, yeah, good point. So there was energy in that group, both positive and negative. All right, I'm just about done. Now it's your turn. One pleasant thing to do is define your surreal name. And you can do it here and now, or just do it some other time. But it's just to hold that in your hand, or hold that on a piece of paper. It's a fun thing to do. You just take the letters in your name. Oh, I never talked about this. I'll just do that. And it's an anagram. So just to give a name to those other little parts of yourself that have always been with you. So the letters in Daniel Mack have been with me since 1947. And then you just sort of twist them around and it becomes Linda the Peck. Who's that? Well, that's the other part of me. So it's a game. And again, if there's anything to remember, again, from the 72-second version, it's just you keep looking around for things to do. So this is one thing to do. Let me explain one other thing about Surrealism. There was an internal quality that you sort of were moody, brooding, you looked into yourself and you came up with various thoughts and peeves, and then the other is that you look for stimulation out in the world. You look for other people who were doing that. So they were very interested, and this was at a time in ethnological or anthropological history that lots of stuff was being stolen, sold, traded in Paris, all around the world. This is a very interesting object. It's from the Congo. It's a fetish object, a nail fetish object. It's called an ikisi, and it's if you had some distress, if you were worried about your children or your health, that you may have misbehaved, or a trip you were going on, you would probably go to some kind of healer, seer, divination person, and he, probably a he, would take this special tool out. You would drive a nail into it to start it going, and the energy would be there, and that this would be a container for you to sort of make peace with the spirits somewhere else. So these were very, very popular. This spoke to a lot of the surrealists. And it speaks to a lot of artists. How do you get your motor going to get to, meditation does it for a lot of us. There's lots of different ways, but this was a way that was very provocative, so that the surrealists often collected primitive art. So primitive art, outsider art. So anything, again, that gives you that little kind of jab of, oh, I hadn't seen something like that. And that's why I responded to the corner art back there. It's the most kind of punchy, what's the world all about? Much of the other pieces here are kind of expected. It's pleasant reminders of the world we live in. I think, is that true? Is it student art in the corner?
It's the children of the photographer.
Okay.
Artist.
Again, children, right? Children. They have access. It hasn't crusted over yet in them, but that's the kind of energy that surrealists were looking for. I'll show you a few more things. Here's you're welcome to come up and take a look at these later on. My practice of surrealism is not only the carving, but something as simple as taking like the lovely flowers and blossoms we have now and put them between two pieces of paper, pound them, and the images that come out are just amazing. So it's both a mixture of now, and chance, and color. So again, it's just two pieces of paper. Those forsythia blossoms. Do I have forsythia here? I might. My favorite is Oxalis, the Oxalis leaves, because of the triangle. And so it's just finding ways, and again, I'm not showing these in a gallery. So the idea that the artist, it's only one little form of art being commercialized when it goes to a gallery. Art is something we have to do ourselves. We have to order, reorder, disorder all the time. So just making these, and these turn into wonderful little cards to send to people. Hi, happy birthday, goodbye. After those 72 seconds, you couldn't take them more. And the other thing that I like doing is we all have our cell phones. What do you do with all those cell phone pictures? Well, why have you kept all those? So what I started doing is going to CBS.com, and they have these 20-page books that you can do. And it's a wonderful way of just sort of shedding off. You have anyone done this? Have anyone done this? All right, I'll pass these around. But it's just they're about $10 each, and it's just a way
Oh,
to
you pay the $10?
I have to pay CBS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's very simple to do it online. You do it from your cell phone or your computer. And it's a way of just kind of expelling some thoughts you've had, or the garden this year, or that vacation. I mean, there's somewhere between a photo album and a diary. And that's an artistic activity. It's like a creative, just because essentially what artists do is they reorganize, they repattern things. So that instead of it being linear, this is what we did this year, it's like, how can you juxtapose certain things? What do you do? So thank you to CBS for such an opportunity. Yeah.
Are there any studies to show that surrealists survive solitary confinement better than ordinary people?
Well, the whole lot.
Oh, they could rationalize it better.
What do you think?
I think maybe yes. I mean, instead of trying to take apart your mattress to hang yourself, you could make a million things with it. You could do anagrams in your own head.
It's probably true. All right. The other form of kind of engaging with the unconscious is you do it alone and quiet, which is what this would be, solitary confinement. Alone and active, where you're taking the mattress apart, and so one would be meditative, the other would be active, or you do it with other people. So yeah, I think they were more practiced in solitary activity and happy with it. Good question.
Did Kurt share his art with his wife? He said she wasn't.
Oh, I really don't know. Do you know?
No, I mean, I'm nuts, he passed away long before.
Yeah. I don't know. But I mean, she came from an art gallery family, so I mean, the no pun intended, the framework of his life, and he supported the family, although I suspect her money helped him.
I was going to say, did he support himself with his art at that time?
He was a teacher, and also, yes, his work is in major museums. Chicago Art Museum has, he sold a lot. And even in those last few years, after he retired, he was very well known and collected, and there's some major collections of his work.
Question.
Yeah.
Is surrealism kind of passé? Is it something from the past, or do we see it expressed in some forms of art or literature today?
I think under that term, it's passé. It's like talking about a particular moment in our history. But what I've been trying to do here today was that the little energy behind it, or the big energy behind it, is there finding other ways to. I mean, Andy Warhol was probably a surrealist, without the burden of the name. I think there are a lot of people who look for violation. I mean, if you kind of dissect surrealism into what it actually does, the throwing, the blowing, the twisting, the violating, that's a part of a lot of art movements today, the changing things. They just have different names.
The that Saatchi exhibit in Brooklyn, where they drew the dumb, they had the dumb on.
Oh, yeah.
That's a surrealist.
Yes, it is. But it goes back so much further than that. It's that, what can we do to sort of ease the way into a contact with another reality? A couple of other simple things to do is they would something called involuntary art, involuntary sculpture. And it's amazing, these things are just so popular that you can get this in your local grocery store. And they bend, and you can turn it into various shapes. Look at that, isn't it amazing? So involuntary sculpture with old wire, with those wonderful black lanyards. Oh, no, I don't. And then these things, I hadn't even noticed these before. There's little furry creatures that are dropping these all over my yard. I think they're black walnut. Now, I'm not sure what they are. They look like skulls. And then these, I was in at a beach last week, and I found these. So surrealism lives in children's playgrounds. So there's a couple of really great natural playgrounds in the area. One's over at the Hudson Highlands Nature Museum at Grasshopper Grove. Have any of you been there to see that? That's worth taking a look at. And the other is a very modest one over at the community center in Warwick called Three Pines. And a nature playground is a place it looks pretty bad. It's just a bunch of trees and sand and dirt and stumps, and you go, oh, where's the slide? Where's the safety features? Where's the and all of a sudden you see kids and they are just energized, I mean, so it's a whole different approach. And a couple parents that I talked to, they say, I know when to bring my child here, and I know when to bring them to the other playground. That it's a different way of engaging. And the concept behind it, and this is my point, is the idea of loose parts. Nature playgrounds are filled with just loose parts, just things that you can move around. And open-chested stuff, as opposed to this is the slide, this is the little house, this is the swing, and that we all need access to loose parts, just arranging things in a kind of nonsensical way or unsensical way. So I brought various loose parts. I have, if you'd like to come up and arrange them, these are some nice crab claws that I picked up. And you can, I tried this with my granddaughter last week. I had them all lined up by size and color, and she messed them all up and made letters out of them all. And it's letters? You don't make letters out of crab. Again, it's that child going to the compost pile. So engaging with people together in loose parts play is a example in just kind of stretching yourself. And we say, oh, I guess that would be okay. So that's where surrealism lives today. It's just you catching yourself and saying, I guess I could do it another way. Or I can, you put yourself in a slight risky position and see what happens. And then often there's just a moment of awe, like, wow, that was really nice. I like that. Okay? Good. Thank you for coming. Thank you. I sort of guessed what age group would be here. I brought you all copies of the new Dirt magazine. I have an article in there on us older people. It's called. So here, take this. It's called The Backseat Manifesto: Meditations on the View from North of 70.
I'll take one.
Okay. No, that's, take that out. Yeah.
Thanks so much, Daniel. Anybody who's interested, there's still some coffee and munchies over there. And thanks everybody for coming today.
Anybody in the whole world could be.
Hey.